Yo, what is good, everyone? My name's Greg, and today we are going to be ranking the DCEU movies. Now, if you are confused of what that means, this is the whole franchise of movies that Batman and Superman have been in for the past 10, 15 years, and it is going to be completely restarted soon. So this is the perfect time for me to talk about them. I just watched The Flash, which is the most recent movie from this franchise, today. So very fresh on my mind, and I've seen the rest of these movies in the past year or so, or even less than that. So I am I would say I'm pretty fresh in the mind of these movies, and so I'm going to be ranking them. At time of this recording, there are 14 movies, and I have not seen 3 of them, which is the Suicide Squad, I know there's 2 of them, and this Harley Quinn movie that was made. And for various reasons, just not really interested. A little bit more in the rated R, kind of just like goofy, violent stuff, and so I'm not really into that. But I have seen all 11 other films, so I'm going to be ranking them today. All right, at the bottom of the list, coming in at number 11 is going to be Wonder Woman 1984. Now, this movie came out in COVID times, actually. It was probably one of the first big movies that the movie theaters were thinking that this would save the theater, because everyone was starting to watch from streaming. I think this was either 2020 or 2021. And so this is kind of a big deal for people. This is one of the first movies that came out in theaters for the pandemic. And did it save movies? Not necessarily. I think it gave some people some hope. But unfortunately, this is not a very good movie. It has got way too much the whole concept of it is like the villain is like this dude who wants to own all these I think it's oil industry or something. He wants this oil empire or whatever. And there's a CGI cat lady that's finding Wonder Woman in this. Very goofy. I don't think they should have brought Wonder Woman's boyfriend back into it. And yeah, there's some moments of dialogue in between Steve and Diana that I think are just as good as the first movie, but as a whole, it is very convoluted and I just don't think works. But coming in at number 10 is going to be Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Now, this movie, while I don't think there is any in-your-face, just goofy flaws in this film, as a whole, the movie just completely falls apart as just generic. And it is just at a time where a lot of people are quote-unquote superhero fatigued. That's what people have been calling it. We just seen so many superhero movies that just saying, oh yeah, there's a new superhero movie out, go watch that, that doesn't work for people anymore. You have to have something else to offer for people to go to the theater. And for this, unfortunately, it did not deliver that. The villains are they're these 3 sisters. One's super ancient. They're all ancient, but one's played by a super old actress, and it's just why are you dressed up in a robe fighting with these super buff superheroes, and everyone's just flying around in capes. But the movie does not give something to offer on just a uniqueness level. It is kind of the same thing that we've all kind of seen over the past 20, 30 years or whatever. Yeah, so I think it sacrifices the heart of the first film, with the first Shazam, with just genericness. And yeah, I don't think that was a good trade-off. So that is why that comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is going to be 2016's Justice League. Now, this movie is kind of a big deal because this is one of the team-up movies for the superhero films. And yeah, so as a story level, I don't think this film works very well. It is completely, the whole thing is just setup, payoff, setup, payoff. It doesn't give anything just a long time to just flesh out through different characters, different storylines, the villain. So, and obviously, I mean, the villain Steppenwolf, he's this like alien dude or whatever. He just doesn't work. It's kind of like, it's a worse version of the Avengers. And what I mean by that is, it's basically big CGI boss guy sends down another dude who's like a general in his army, or just like another super villain that's like a little bit lesser, and he sends them to Earth to conquer the world, basically. And Steppenwolf, which is kind of, if you don't catch my drift, I am talking about Steppenwolf and Loki. Steppenwolf I mean, from a character design thing, he just doesn't look that great. Kind of looks goofy. People made fun of it when the movie came out. He just kind of, you know, watching it and you're like, I don't feel a sense of like threat or anything, because this guy, like, I don't know, it's something a little bit off. He's just a little bit too CG, with also being like generic. And it's also like a worse version of like the Infinity Stones. It's like these 3 like power cubes that they've got to like collect or whatever to like conquer the world or something like that. Yeah, Cyborg, he's just kind of there. Aquaman, it's a little bit confusing with this and the Aquaman movie, and like time-wise where everything shifted around, and whose trident Aquaman is holding. I think Aquaman's holding his mother's trident in this movie, but he was holding his father's trident in Aquaman, and it makes sense, but it's just a little bit confusing. Batfleck, Ben Affleck as Batman, he's good in this. I mean, he's fine. The Flash is actually the best part of this movie. Ezra Miller does actually a good job playing him here. I can't complain about that. But yeah, Superman, I mean, he's cool, but as a story level, the pacing of this movie doesn't work. And then, you know, when you finish the movie without knowing anything else like about it, what went on behind the scenes, you're like, all right, you know, all right, that was decent. All right, there were some issues there. I mean, the final battles very generic and forgettable. But then you start looking up behind the scenes. Literally, okay, so the director, get this, the director, Zack Snyder, you may know him. He directed 300. He directed Man of Steel. He literally, like, he loses a kid like midway through making this film. DC, like, they do some weird stuff, like threatening him, like using his kid as like an example. It was just some really twisted stuff. This movie is just a very prominent example of how Hollywood can be so twisted in their morals. But halfway through like making this movie, it's like halfway made, they bring in Joss Whedon, because Joss can make, I think it's Joss, it's not Josh, but Joss made the first 2 Avengers movies, and so they're like, oh yeah, he can make like superhero team-up movie. He just made that like a couple years ago. Let's bring him on. Well, here's the problem. They have 2 very different styles of filmmaking. Zack is more of like a moody, kind of darker tone. Joss is a very like action, colorful. I mean, just to name like the surface level difference of their filmmaking. And so they just do not, like, the movie feels like it's fighting against itself, and it just does not fit in any of the cracks. And so, I mean, it's a little bit twisted behind the scenes. They didn't treat the actors well, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, so a movie that just kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth the more that you know about it. But coming in at number 8 is a much better movie than Justice League. Let me be clear, there is a big difference in between these 2 films. And this might be my biggest hot take on this list, but I would put 2019's Shazam on this. Now, Shazam, a lot of people love it. I like it too. It has a surprising amount of heart to it for being kind of like a very silly, goofy comedy film. Zachary Levi plays a great man-child in this. The idea of like a 14-year-old boy turning a superhero with powers is fairly compelling, and I think that's a nice direction that they took with it. I think the biggest issue with it, though, is the tone of this movie. Now, the tone is all over the place. Literally, you get Mark Strong's character, who is a villain in this movie. He's got like this weird like eye patch and stuff, or like an eye that goes wrong. I don't know. But he's like he summons these demons like out of like the staff or whatever. and they just like there's like this whole like conference table filled with like people like in suits. The demons just go out and like skip ahead if you're sensitive a few seconds, but these demons go out and just like eat these people's heads and just kill them, everybody in this room, and then they all go back into the staff and the guy was that literally happens, and then like that is immediately followed after like silly like goofy like teenage jokes. And so like the movie like is this it can't decide if it's like a kids movie or not. So yeah, tone differences. So I don't know, like I was watching this movie reviewer guy, and he was like, I don't know if I'm going to show this with my kids because I like it, but like there's some pretty messed up stuff in this. Like I said, it does have a bit of a heart to it, which is a nice surprise because it does. The main characters are adopted, and so it is talking about like the foster family system. I think it's really, really sweet when it hits those notes, and the comedy works. But yeah, a movie that's a little bit too over the place and not necessarily something that I'm just going to go around and rewatch. And coming in at number 7 on this list would be 2018's Aquaman. Now, Aquaman, I actually really like. The rest of these films on this list, after Shazam and Up, I would give a positive review on. Justice League and Down, I would give a negative review on. But Aquaman, actually, it's a very goofy movie, very silly, but it's a very fun film. And the director, he knows how to make fairly big blockbusters. And Aquaman, this is a movie that made like a ton of money in the box office, and we still don't really know why. I mean, like it made over $1 billion, and it's just like, I mean, it's the most profitable film in like the DC, and like it's Aquaman. Like he's not the main guy. He's like the merman with the fish who talks to the fish. Like I don't know, but yeah. But is it a good movie? Yeah, it's not great, but it's good. It's very self-aware. Its goofiness, it doesn't take itself too seriously. There's like crazy pop music playing while these guys are like battling each other with tridents. But yeah, the villain's decent. Our heroes are good. Jason Momoa plays a very good Aquaman. I just love his look with everything. Can't complain about that. And yeah, you get the actor for Boba Fett playing his dad, which is pretty cool. So yeah, just a nice, fun film. And coming in at number 6 on this list is Batman v Superman. Now, some of you guys who have seen all these movies will not really agree with my placement here. Now, Batman v Superman, let me be clear, I think as a whole, maybe for what they were going for, Aquaman and Shazam actually work a little bit better than Batman v Superman. Now, but for rewatchability and for what I want to, like the characters that I want to see, I think Batman v Superman is going to be number 6 for me. Now, this movie does have some very obvious flaws. All right, I'm actually going to talk about the flaws first. It is very, very convoluted. And what I mean by that is there is way too much stuff that is going on. This movie is trying to be a Man of Steel 2, while at the same time being an introduction to Batman, while also setting up the Justice League. So you've got like all the characters of the Justice League in this pretty much. Yeah, it has a lot of stuff. Also like Lex Luthor and his whole worldview, with also trying to tie in and make a third act by the end of it, after the whole Batman v Superman thing happened. But then basically the whole like final battle is just so that Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman can team up to fight some kind of like big CGI boss. So it does have some flaws, but I like I like the elements when Bruce is talking to Clark and all that, and Lois Lane, she works well in it. The director's cut of this movie is better, so I would suggest watching that. I think it's only like 20-30 minutes longer, so I would recommend watching that instead of the actual full original cut. Yeah, so it definitely has its flaws, but and Lex Luthor is not, like, I don't like him as a villain. Maybe I'm rethinking putting this at number 6, but I don't know, there's just something to it. I like seeing Batman and Superman interact. So yeah, that is why it comes in at number 6. And coming up at number 5 on this list is actually a very recent movie, 2022's Black Adam. Now, this movie I had so much hype for going in. I mean, The Rock being a superhero, or not really a superhero, he's kind of like an anti-hero. I mean, that idea is just so cool, inherently. And yeah, there's a bunch of hype going into this. Literally, the movie was in production since like 2008 or something like that. Like that's when Rock was like announced for this role, and it just took forever to make. But this is like Dwayne's like passion project, and so it finally came out, and what we got was actually pretty decent. Now, it is a generic movie. It's not superheroes fighting around in capes all the time because Black Adam, sometimes he has a cape, sometimes he doesn't. But that's kind of another thing. But the setting of this movie is like a Middle Eastern country, so I guess that's different. But yeah, the action is done fairly well in this, actually. So there's some humor. I think that some of it works. Black Adam's like introduction. I mean, he is just so cool just to see him just take down dudes, and that's actually probably the best part about this movie. Now, other positive notes, I would say there's a group of 4 superheroes called the Justice Society. And they kind of are like a team that's just kind of, they're like the second hand Justice League, which is kind of funny, but they are sent to take down Black Adam. And so that includes Hawkman, which is played by, his name starts with a D, I can't remember, but he's really good in this. And then Pierce Brosnan, he actually plays this kind of like wise, kind of, it's like the Doctor Strange of this universe. He's actually really good in this. And then there's this Noah Centineo, who plays basically this version, this universe version of a Ant-Man. And then there's this other lady who plays this like Twister lady who does colors and stuff. I don't know, but yeah, it's actually a pretty good movie. You should check it out. It's very fun. I would say it's rewatchable. Yeah. Is it generic? Yes. Is it inventing the wheel? No, but it is a fun time. Coming in at number 4 on this list would be the Snyder Cut, which is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yeah, remember that guy who I talked about a few rankings back? That guy, he came back because the internet loved him and HBO Max needed some more original content. So they brought him over to complete his full vision for what he wanted the Justice League movie to be. Now, let me make this clear. This is a director's cut, so it is going to be a bit lengthy. This movie is over 4 hours long. So it does take a little bit to sit through. Definitely is going to be like 2 sittings at least to get through it. I actually saw the first half of this movie and the second half literally a couple months apart. So that was a little bit weird, but yeah. So but it is a good movie. It's not the most rewatchable, but you should see it. It is kind of dark. The whole color tone has changed. If you do see the first Justice League and then you see this, is very different. But this is definitely an upgrade. Now, I would say it makes a 5 out of 10 movie an 8 out of 10 movie. So it's not like perfection, but it is a definite upgrade. Now, this, because it has 4 hours and it's told by one director, it has enough time to set up and pay off, and all the characters can have their full character arcs, because we're dealing with 5 superheroes here, so or 6, I don't know, but it's this whole they all get their own arcs for this. Darkseid is actually the villain. I don't know if you know about him, but he's actually the Thanos of this universe pretty much. And yeah, he wasn't almost in the first film at all, and now he's the main villain at the end. The ending of this movie is so much better than the first, so that is something to look kind of here and then there and just say, yeah, that was a big upgrade. It's not perfection. Some people have this at their number 1 for the DC movies, but I wouldn't say that, but it is very good. Alrighty, so let me be clear. The top 3 movies on this list are all kind of interchangeable, and I can pick one more than the other depending on what kind of mood, what kind of lens I'm looking through for the particular day. And so for today, this is going to be my current listing. And with that being said, coming in at number 3 is the most recent installment of this franchise, and I'm pretty sure it's the last one. It's going to be The Flash. Now, The Flash, of course, this is a very, very recent memory for me, so I'm still kind of decompressing my thoughts, but kind of overall initial reactions. This movie is good. It's bombed at the box office. It cost $300 million to make, something like that. It's not even made $100 million, and it's been several weekends at the box office. So it is not doing good. And I think that's because they got their marketing wrong. But yeah, it's gonna go down in history as one of the worst flops in superhero movie history. But movie, not disregarding money wise, movie wise, how did this hold up? After watching this, there's only one big in-your-face problem. And if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is the CGI, the VFX, if you will. The CGI in this movie is hot garbage, respectfully. Respectfully, it is hot garbage. There are several scenes in this. I mean, from the very beginning when the Flash is doing his whole when it zooms out, like the camera zooms out and he's running super sonic speed. There's it's showing him he's running at kind of slow pace, and then the world is zooming beside him, and that I think, okay, all right, it's ambitious. The shots that they do, the CG shots, I think are ambitious. I think are inherently cool. Are they executed well? Absolutely not. They look like PS3, gameplay or whatever. I mean, like cutscenes. It's bad. There are times anytime where the character needs to go from just normal actor talking to CG, you can tell there's a noticeable difference. That and comes in hand with the Flash. That comes in hand with Batman. When anytime Batman needs to swirl around with the cameras going around him, you can tell it's very CG. His mask just looks weird. And then there's a couple cameos in this film, and yeah, they're cameos, but the actors, there's a couple shots of the actors. I mean, it's clearly not them. It's their video game lookalike, and it is just it takes out of the immersion of the film. But all that being said, the rest of the movie is actually pretty spanking good. Michael Keaton is so cool in this. He steals every scene that he's in. He's so cool in this, and I know that was their goal. They're bringing nostalgia, trying to bring the dads and everybody else that grew up on Michael Keaton back when he was the superhero guy. They're bringing him back, and that's so cool. Ezra Miller. I don't know if you've looked in recent news, but the past year or two, he's gone completely wacko. I liked him in Justice League. I thought he was the only really good thing in Justice League in the 2016. But but in real life, he's actually kind of crazy. Just look it up. I'm not even going to talk about some stuff, but he is an absolute PR nightmare. But his acting wise, I actually liked. He does come across as whiny, but that's kind of his persona. He's kind of accepting that, and it's a style of humor. And I laughed out loud several times watching this. And I think it's a very good movie. And Flash is good in it. Batman's good. Supergirl, I was actually worried about her. She's good in this movie. And so just they bring in. I mean, of course, Batfleck's in this too. They bring just different elements. And there's actually a lot of heart in this movie, which I did not expect. The whole concept of this movie, a hero is able to go back in time to save his parents from being gone from his life, basically. And he's able to go back and redo that, but there might be consequences to it. There is a risk to it, but that was the kind of pivotal moment for him in his life. And so, I mean, you have multiple Batmen warning him about it. And it has this really nice lesson with kind of these scars that you accumulate over time in life make you who you are. So kind of straightforward message, but is relatable to pretty much anybody, especially if you have gone through some loss. So I think that really, really touched up on some things. And if you're an emotional person, there are going to be a couple times in this movie where you are going to be bawling. But but it is good. It's a good film. And then coming in at number 2 on this list, I've been going back and forth in my head if number 1 and number 2, I've been swapping them. At this time of recording, I'm gonna go with 2011's Man of Steel. This is Henry Cavill's Superman origin story, and kind of the first time we had seen Superman in his movie and in his own movie since the 70s. So I am so glad this movie exists. In a way, it has shaped what superhero movies are like now. The Dark Knight definitely did that better, but it has played a major influential role. And yeah, I think it's really good. This is Zack Snyder's kind of directing like filmmaking talent style at best display. Yeah, it's the whole kind of tone, the mood. They found a different angle to get a Superman origin story, and I think it absolutely works. It's now I don't know. I don't know. I think the more times I rewatch this, I'm gonna like it more and more, which I appreciate. But yeah, at the time of at the time of shooting this, yeah, it comes in at number 2. And coming in at number 1 is going to be 2017's Wonder Woman. Now, it does feel a little bit weird, me as a guy putting this kind of like girl power, like superhero movie that girls can look up to, like at number 1. But I try not to think about that, you know? Obviously, a lot of people thought that they were crazy when they were gonna get a model to be an actress in like a major project. And I know she's done like Fast and the Furious and some other stuff, and her career is kind of launching off now. Yeah, Gal's actually pretty good in this. But Yeah, so I think this is a good movie. It goes back in time or whatever. The setting is World War One, which I think is a cool different angle to take things off of. And I just like the setting. I'm a sucker for kind of like war movie, kind of like atmosphere. So I will always appreciate that. Chris Pine is really funny in this movie, and this kind of introduced me to him because I haven't watched Star Trek or anything like that. So yeah, this kind of introduced me to Chris Pine, and yeah, his banter with Diana. It was the best thing for Wonder Woman 1989, which is at the bottom of this list, and it is a good part of this movie, which is at the top. And so my only complaint about this film is after this whole kind of arc, this whole coming of age story, at the very end of the movie, it ends on a sour note. Everything that's gone on, and Wonder Woman ends up fighting a big cluster of CGI boss in the end, which is a classic DC moment. So kind of that was an easy problem to fix, and they kind of failed on that. But aside from that, the whole rest of the movie, I just absolutely love. The humor works, action works, all of it works, and that is why it comes in at number 1. Just as an end note, for those people who are going to be asking me if I prefer like Marvel or DC, and what do I think about DC like as a whole, I think the Marvel movies generally are better, especially if you took like where Endgame ended things and like all of that, and before when they were on their hot streak, now they are like kind of like falling on their face a little bit. But Marvel movies are better, or MCU ones. But I think DC has better heroes and villains. I would confidently say that. Marvel, because they're so good at filmmaking and all that, with some of the movies, they have made the heroes and villains better. But I think just pulling from the comics and just how they interact, I think DC has a better universe, maybe as a whole, I would say. Yeah, I know these two have been in kind of competition. It's kind of sad to see this whole like kind of universe stop to a halt, but I think it's what's for the best, for a big reset. And I don't know if you've heard, but James Gunn, he's the one who directed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He is now he and this other like writer dude or whatever, they are going to be leading this this new DCEU. And so not DC Extended Universe, but just DC Universe. And they've already launched their movie titles, and yeah, so we're going to get a big reboot for a whole franchise, which I think is for the best. You need because this when they made Man of Steel all the way back in 2011. They didn't plan on doing this whole universe. They were like, all right, Superman movie. And then Zack Snyder was like, all right, let's get him to fight Batman. But while these movies were coming out, Marvel was doing Iron Man, and they built off that with Hulk, and then they did Thor, and then they did the Avengers. And then DC like freaked out. They're like, all right, we need to do a big like superhero like team up movie. So that rushed Batman v Superman to set up Justice League, and then Justice League, and then they made a lot of problems on the way. They just never intended this universe to all just kind of come together like a Marvel, like the Marvel movies did. So yeah, so it is from this very get-go, it was not going to be as planned. But yeah, so that is my list of all 11 DCEU movies that I've seen. Follow for more, or subscribe or whatever. I think I'm going to be doing something I'm even more passionate about than this. I'm going to be ranking the Christopher Nolan movies very, very soon, after Oppenheimer comes out, so be looking forward to that. I'm a massive Nolan fanboy. He is my favorite movie director, and some of his movies are my favorites of all time, so I will be absolutely pumped to make that. And yeah, so subscribe for more. I might do more scans, I might do more movie content, I may review a new Prime flavor, who knows. That's all that I got for today. And yeah, I need to get a good like catchphrase at the end, but stay Gregan or something, I don't know. Peace out.